To prepare for the release of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, here is everything that you need to know about this new series, including its main characters, its settings, and some speculation on the premise of the story. Official Star Wars sources tell us that Star Wars Skeleton Crew follows the journey of 4 kids who make a mysterious discovery on their seemingly safe home planet, then get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Finding their way home and meeting unlikely allies and enemies, this will be a greater adventure than they ever imagined. Supporting this, Disney officials tell us that Skeleton Crew tells the story of 4 kids searching for their home planet after getting lost in the Star Wars galaxy, and the strange aliens and dangerous places they encounter on their adventure. Jude Law, who you will no doubt know is one of the main actors, tells us that Skeleton Crew is very much a piece about working together and overcoming fears, and overcoming one's opinion of oneself or one's own weaknesses in order to succeed. Now, so many people are saying that Skeleton Crew is like the Goonies in space, and I agree. We are getting serious ET vibes, and it seems from the trailers that is definitely what they are going for. We've even seen a last minute 80s style sneak peek release, which I love. Now, a lot of people have been wondering whether this is a kids show. Thankfully, creator John Watts has now confirmed that whilst the main characters are indeed kids, this is not a kids show. Now, I don't think that suggests that this is going to be as graphic as shows like Stranger Things, but I do believe they're going for the same kids on bike genre that has always been popular with a wide array of audiences. That includes intense and exciting storylines and violent moments that adults can relate to, but that can be watched by all ages. Set in the New Republic era, it is set during the same timeline as The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, also known as the Mandoverse. Reports are suggesting that this takes place about 5 or 6 years after the Return of the Jedi, whilst there is a power vacuum left behind after the defeat of the Galactic Empire, and whilst the Republic is still gaining strength, but Imperial remnants and pirates still run rife in the darker reaches of the galaxy. Trailers so far haven't seemed to suggest that the Imperial remnant will play a significant role in the series, but it is important to remember that this takes place around a similar time to which Thrawn makes his way back to the galaxy. What we do see in the trailers, however, is the mention of pirates and bounty hunters, which makes it quite clear that they seem to have strayed from New Republic space. Interestingly, there seems to be something fishy going on to the kids' home planet, and we get several hints that some of the kids' parents are being watched or controlled by droids, whilst the parents are thinking of ways to get them back. StarWars.com states that the kids are from a seemingly safe planet that nobody has heard of, which has raised a suspicion online as to whether their planet is set in the known Star Wars universe, or perhaps it's just very isolated. We see snippets of a clean suburbia with forests, large schools, and with first impressions suggesting an idyllic setting that will contrast with wherever it is that they get lost. However, we see droids patrolling their home planet that suggests that it's under some kind of controlling government or force. The droids moving through the forest at night, in the kids' school, and in the kids' homes. For now, let's introduce the main characters that have appeared in the trailers. We start with the 4 kids who are clearly going to be the stars of the show. An article on StarWars.com states that the series focuses on 2 pairs of best friends, which suggests that the 4 kids don't know each other or aren't necessarily friends with each other at the start of the show. The first group of friends are Wim and Neil, and the second group are Fern and KB. Wim has managed to get the most airtime of the trailers and sneak peeks. The creators have described him as a kid who is full of wide-eyed wonder and curiosity, a dreamer who rushes headfirst into any adventure without considering the bigger picture or consequences. The trailers certainly seem to suggest that he is responsible for getting the 4 kids into the trouble in the first case, as he finds a buried ship in the woods, believing it to be an ancient and lost Jedi temple. We see him reading stories depicting the Jedi on their adventures, which perhaps fuels this fantasy. We also see him assuming that Jude Law's character John is a Jedi after seeing him supposedly use the Force to move a set of keys. We get the impression that this is the classic kid, bored of his life in suburbia on his boring planet and is wishing for adventure like the Jedi of old. Next up, we have Neil, who appears to be Wim's friend. Neil has been described by the creators as being sweet and innocent, and I do believe that he is going to be the primary source of goofy comic relief. An instant hit with fans, the young elephant-like child, who is best friends with Wim, many people have thought that he's the same species as Max Rebo of the Max Rebo Band on Tatooine. but we can see that there are some clear differences between the two. I have no doubt that Neil's character design was inspired by him, however. We see in a second trailer that Neil is told to take control of the ship, and Wim seems to almost be surprised or nervous, suggesting that he may not be the go-to person when left in charge of serious situations. The way in which Wim behaves here may suggest that he is seen by Wim as more of a sidekick than someone that takes the lead. I am fully expecting Neil to have to swallow his fears and grow in confidence to save the day at some point in the series. Next up, we have the girls. Starting with Fern, we get the impression that she is a headstrong character who is potentially a bit rebellious. She has been described by John Watts as someone who is not unlike Leia, someone who can play the role of the sweet and innocent daughter, but can just as easy switch to being the tough rebel who will stand up to bullies. She has been depicted as being the tough one of the 4 kids. We've seen her speeding through traffic on her speeder bike, almost causing accidents, and holding herself with confidence, and from the trailer we can see that she is clearly used to getting into trouble, and isn't fazed as she sits outside of the principal's office. This scene also makes it look like this is where she meets Wim, which is perhaps how the two groups become involved with each other. I think that whilst Wim may think that he's the boss of the 4 of them, Fern will actually be the one in control. Next up, we have KB. Whilst KB has had the least airtime in the commercials so far, we're told that she is quiet, thoughtful, intellectual and tech savvy. I think that she's going to be the outside of the box thinker who will no doubt come up with a lot of the plans whilst Wim and Fern take the lead. Moving on to the adults, we have Jude Law's character Jod Manawad. Jude Law is certainly the bigger name actor in this series, and the trailers and sneak peeks have certainly seemed to suggest that he's the starring adult role. We see that Jod seems to take the kids under his wing, promising to get them back to their home planet, but I'm almost certain that he has ulterior motives. I'm not suggesting that he wishes to cause the kids harm, but I do believe that he's a scoundrel of some kind, perhaps a thief, smuggler or treasure hunter who may have a bounty on his head. He is no doubt looking to exploit the kids for the use of their help and ship, likely to seek some fortune, which we actually see a sneak peek of in the trailer, a large gold skull sitting in what seems to be a pile of credits and jewellery. It looks like Jod has used the Force to move some keys, which leads Wim to assume that he's a Jedi, to which he seems to confirm. I, however, am not so convinced. If he was an Order 66 survivor, he was very likely a youngling at the time of his survival, and therefore wasn't fully trained. From a story perspective, I doubt this. The Order 66 survival story has been overdone recently, with Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Grogu, Cal Kestis and Kanan Jarrus all receiving lots of airtime. I think that he's just a guy who has discovered that he's Force sensitive and uses it to his own advantage. I reckon that he will start off using the kids to his own advantage, but as the story progresses, he will become responsible and care for them and their safety. We also know the name of the ship that the kids find and fly through the galaxy thanks to an unlikely source, a Lego set, that was recently released and called the Onyx Cinder. From the footage that we've seen, it seems to have been buried or hidden for a very long period of time, and we see Wim holding Old Republic credits in one of the trailers, set millennia before the Republic era. It is possible that this is what Jod or the pirates seem to be chasing them are interested in. It's possible that the Onyx Cinder is the key to finding the long-lost treasure I spoke about earlier, perhaps with hyperdrive coordinates or a map, or even with the Onyx Cinder belonging to a long-dead pirate or treasure hunter. On board the Onyx Cinder is the droid SM-33, who appears to be the robot hand responsible for supporting the ship. Voiced by Nick Frost, it looks as if SM-23 becomes activated as the kids mess around on the ship. Whilst we don't know too much about SM-23, we see him punching pirates and other droids, so I can only assume that he begrudgingly takes a role in protecting the group. He reminds me of an old and grumpy K2SO from Rogue One. I don't believe that this show is going to be as straightforward as we think, and I do think there's going to be some serious mysteries and surprises along the way, with perhaps intergalaxy or maybe even time travel. Who knows? But for now, I think that's all we need to know. I personally am really looking forward to this series, and I think it'll be a welcome movement away from what's happened with the Acolyte series. And please remember, if you don't like it, these are kids. Please be nice, Star Wars fans. What do you think? Are you looking forward to the series? Please drop a thumbs up, a comment and a subscribe below. It goes a long way in helping us to create Star Wars theory content. Thanks so much for watching.